Hello and welcome to Man's Model Moments Midweek Model Meets, second one of May already. So tonight I organised this a bit late. Apologies for that. It's been a busy day. So I thought we'd just have a bit of a chat. And specifically, I thought Revell was worthy of mention. Now, I did speak to Luke earlier. We recorded a piece which will be coming out in a week's time, so on the 19th. Because, of course, yesterday we got, see if I actually have it here. I can present an image file. So yesterday, I put up this video. Something new is coming, 19th of the 5th, 2026. And this was on Facebook. Now, I mentioned in the video, I'm not sure about how well-trodden Facebook is as a kind of marketing tool these days. We kind of shied away from it in big corporate companies, basically because it's, I mean, maybe it's different for modeling because there's a lot of us in our middle years, should we say, let's be kind, of certain generations, so Generation X and older, really, and they perhaps use Facebook more than prior generation since then. So I think Generation Y, Zoomers, and Gen Alpha increasingly don't look at Facebook. But rightly or wrongly, they put this little post up. That's all it was. It was just a teaser. And we have, well, I saw a lot of guesses on there. Obviously, I've chatted to Luke, so I have a bit of insider knowledge, and I can't obviously say anything. I'm sworn to secrecy, and but really, I wanted to sort of test you all really about what do you think this signals? Not in terms of the kit, the announcement, the toolings, the decals, or whatever it is, that we're talking about, but just as kind of a change in the industry, because this isn't really something that Revell have done before. Now, obviously, Airfix used to do this all the time, still do it a lot. They've been using social media pretty intensively for at least 5, possibly up to 10 years. I would say 5 is more the kind of high pressure stuff. And it does feel a little bit, to me personally, a little bit high pressure from Airfix at times. We got the announcement for, what was it? When they said something new is coming last time, it was just a new scheme for an existing kit. And it's like, sorry, I've got a video going there that shouldn't be going. Very annoying when YouTube does that. And it's like, does a new set of decals really qualify for an announcement? That's kind of one of the reasons I shied away from Facebook, was because, I don't care about every tiny little thing that people do in their lives. I'm sorry to be brutal, but, big news, yeah. And the only reason I really keep on Facebook is for my channel, as a vehicle for that, and for keeping in touch with relatives. And it's, for the big stuff, rather than, Aunt Shirley had a haircut or something. It's like, that's great. I saw her once 5 years ago. I don't have an Aunt Shirley, by the way, or at least not that I'm aware of. So yeah, really tonight I kind of want to focus more on you guys than me. But let me just take a step back a second. Let's just remove that from our. How the hell do I remove this now? Move from studio. There we go. Let's have a little bit of a rewind anyway, because a fairly small and bijou group tonight, I expect, because no big sort of headline topic on this. We've got Adrian in. Good to see you, Adrian. Remember, 31 months. Thank you, sir. That's very much appreciated. I haven't got my glasses on, so I can't read this. Apologies. Oh my God, those are filthy. Another pair. We've got Stuart. We've got me. I know I'm here. I think we've got Kev. We've got Ian Chambers. We've got Howard Kendrick. Good to see you, Howard. We've got Phil. I've got World War II Scale Models Dave. Good evening. We've got Paul Dye. We've got Drew. We've got John Christmas. John, well aware that your circumstances have been difficult at the minute, so don't worry about any feedback. But Wooden Cans at the end of the month. We'll pop in and give some of that. Excellent. I'll be looking forward to seeing you, John. Also, I have news, John, for your Zaxpeed Capris. There was actually, so these had come in to the hobby company, but they had too many pre-orders and not enough stock was delivered. Now, in praise of the hobby company, I will say that my rep, Andy Farmer, has scoured the hobby company, and he's hand delivering my Capris on Friday. So you will get yours going out then. But that was the reason that was a delay, is that they actually had greater demand than they had supply for, which has happened on a couple of occasions. That's also, just as, again, quick detour on the side, why the DBMK kits have been delayed. I mentioned this on the video yesterday, but well, that was one reason. The other reason is that Royal Mail didn't turn up to take the parcels out. So they haven't had any Royal Mail collections for a week. So Ilya's actually made a complaint against Royal Mail, and they've come and picked all the parcels up now. But that's pretty bad, isn't it? So yes, so those are coming in this week. I expected them tomorrow because they were supposed to be picked up today, but they didn't come, so they're being picked up tomorrow. So I'll get them on Friday. So lots of delays outside of control of production, but all good news for us as modelers, in that if small companies like this, if Qatari, DMBK get more demand than they're expecting, yes, it puts pressure on them, obviously, and they have to adapt to that, and they have to do it. But it also means they're making products people want. They're getting that cash influx, which means, and as we know, Will said, when they get stuff in, they're going to put it into the design and getting the next kit out. So looking good for, I was talking to Ilya, he was talking about the scimitar and the design of that and how it's going on. And Will and Ilya are great guys to talk to, and I can talk to them for hours. And I'm looking forward to catching up with them at shows when I can actually, hopefully, like Telford, when there's an overnight, maybe we could get a couple of beers or something. But I encourage you all to have a chat with them if you see them. Really nice guys. As are now some of the larger companies becoming more accessible. So Airfix and the work Dale and his team did, very accessible. Dale was at all of the big shows, many of the small ones, doing sterling work for Airfix. I think it's criminal that Hornby have made him redundant. I think it's a huge mistake, and I don't think it signals good things, as I've said before, for Hornby. Airfix will carry on in some shape or form, whether it's under the Hornby umbrella or not. I don't think we have to worry about Airfix per se, but obviously Airfix has persisted since it's started. It's just that it hasn't been its own company, and it's been owned by other companies along the way, and obviously that makes it difficult sometimes. It's a rocky road. So it's good to see these other companies are doing really well, and that now we are starting to see companies like Revell Carrera, which, similar to Hornby, owned by a private equity company. They could go down the sort of Mike Ashley strategic route of, cut costs, make everything about the numbers, pile them high, sell them cheap kind of philosophy. I don't think that works in our industry. There's certain industries it does work for, and it's been very successful with that, if rather mercenary. There are other industries it doesn't, and I think modeling is niche enough for it not to work. And I think modelers now appreciate quality. They appreciate communication and openness and honesty. And it's nice to see that we are starting to see that from the likes of Revell, which could go down a very different route. So, Luke and I did chat about that today. Again, you will see that next week. Looking forward to when that goes live after the announcement that they are teasing us with. So we've also got Chroma Fleet Yards. Good to see you. Don't worry about it being late to the party. It's not an official. We don't stand by ceremony, let's say. It's more like a house party, and people just drift in when they want to. Unfortunately, these glasses, these are not prescription glasses. These are just cheap reading glasses. They're actually +3s. I've recently just got some +4s because I use them for modelling. They're not for reading. So I showed these to Marie, and she's like, "Oh my God, what are they?" And I said, "Oh, they're +4s." She said, "Is your eyes that bad?" It's like, she tried them, and it's just like, "Yeah, but you can only see something really close up." And I was like, "Yeah, that's the point. These are great for modelling because you put them on like normal glasses, but now I can get really like magnified up close with something." So I can't read with these, because who wants to have, put these on, and then you've got a piece of paper which your focal length is like, what, 15 centimeters or something. So these are not reading glasses, which is why I struggle reading stuff on the text on the screen, because if I put, it's one of the things you don't know. Maybe I should show you behind the scenes one day with a different camera, but I got a big light here. You can see it reflected on my hand there, and then I've got the screen behind that, so it makes it really difficult to read text because this light is brighter than the text behind it. But if I put these glasses on, that doesn't actually help unless I go to about there. So if I had my prescription glasses, then only about 1.5, I think, for this sort of distance, if that. Anyway, so those were the delays for Black Speed and for DBMK. Oops. Let's see. I was going down, just saying hello to people. Got Doug Smith, Stuart Scales Models, Don't Sub Gaming. Ooh. Don't Sub Gaming brings up a very important point before I actually read his question. If, of course, you have a question, a comment, then put question in big capital letters or comment in big capital letters or QQQ or CCC. That just helps me pick out your question or comment from the wall of text. Otherwise, especially as I can't see it very well because of the light. So there we go. Big capital question. That's what I like to see. Hello, do you think models are too focused on machines of war? Even model shows, if you go and look, 80% of the models are death machines. Should manufacturers make more non-war kits? That's a really interesting question, actually. I'll come back to that. Let me star your comment so I don't lose it. I'm back on with these so I can peer forward. So we've got David of the Valleys. Good to see you. People saying hello, and I think I'm up to date. Right. Let me go back to that question. Now, personally, do I think models are too focused on machines of war? Not really. And I think the reason behind that for me is, well, I think there are two things. Well, there are several facets to this, actually. It's a really interesting question. One part of it is the demographics of the hobby. So I can tell you from YouTube, 99% of my viewers are male. I think it's actually maybe a little bit better now. It might be 98%. But this is a hobby dominated by men. Now, why is that? And people might cite, oh, it's because it's like Machines of War. It doesn't appeal to women. That's not true. The thing is, fundamentally, at a really basic level, men, and this is, of course,
What's his food?
it's in the cupboard.
Not open?
Yes.
Ah.
I just put the cover top. Sorry, it's dog feeding time. Very important. So fundamentally, and again, this is broad population statistics kind of stuff here, and actually goes to sort of the psychology of biology. Basically, men are interested in things. How do I get that comment to not be there and to be down? There is a setting somewhere, and I'm damned if I can remember where it is. If anybody knows how to put the comments as a bubble below, it's a setting somewhere in this, but I just can't remember where it is. Anyway, men are interested in things, women are interested in people. That is a very broad division. It's a bit like saying, men are better at spatial awareness than women. And broadly, statistically, that's true. Of course, they're normal shape distributions which overlap. So some women are better than men and all that kind of stuff. But broadly speaking, those statements are true. Now, that, of course, stems from our biology, because biologically speaking, back in the Stone Age, when we were, or even before that, before we were even Homo sapiens, probably, the males were we have stronger musculature, we're going out, we're finding, foraging, fighting, getting prey animals and bringing them back for food, all that kind of stuff. So we tend to be more focused on those sorts of things. So spatial awareness is really important in hunting. If you're throwing a spear, you need good 3D awareness and targeting to be able to hit your prey more than not, right? You need to be strong to go and run after it and outpace it or survive an attack, all those things. And so obviously if you're good at making spears and using them and stuff, so you become interested in things, and that's kind of gone on and been supported all the way through our evolution, right? Whereas traditionally, females, nest makers in most species, there are exceptions, tend to be, the social glue that knits society together. They were the ones that stopped fights, that worked everything out, that taught the children how to behave and all of that sort of stuff, the social side, the people piece. So, of course, modern society is structured differently, and it's caused some interesting issues over the past 100 years as we adapt to modern life, because we're not biologically sort of evolutionarily designed for that. So our societal progress has outstripped our evolutionary development. That's the crux of it. Anyway, this is all very technical science babble explanation as to why men generally are more interested in things than people, which is why the miniature painting hobby has far more women in it than scale modeling, because scale modeling is fundamentally about things, right? Dioramas do tell stories, but the things feature very prominently in it. Whereas miniature painting is a lot more about like the people, and expressions and bringing life into figures and all that kind of thing. So that's the things piece. Now we look at Machines of War. Well, when do lots of things get made tends to be at times of war in recent years, because technology helps you win, right? You make a better tank, you make a better fighter, you know, there's that. And also it's a Darwinian process, right? War makes the best side win, inverted commas, the best, by technological progress. So it accelerates technology. So you tend to compress. So what, World War II was 7 years long, right? Encompassed 7 years, 1939 to 1945. And in that time, we look at where we were technologically at the beginning to where we were at the end. It's a vast difference. So at the beginning, stress skin monoplanes were just starting to dominate, all metal. So you think the Hurricane was really an ending technology by the start of World War II. You know, it represented the sort of height of the 30s rather than what came in the 40s with the Spitfire. That was really the new technology coming in. We were still using biplanes in some instances, though that was the prior generation of stuff. And by the end, we were looking at close to supersonic jets, rocket fighters, guided missiles, radar, you know, completely different level from where we were in 7 years. Think about the technological advancements we've had in the last 7 years, right, since COVID. Now, my phone has a better light sensor on it. My CPU actually is a different one, but you know, different generation, a bit better than before. Technology of the computing power has got better. My internet connection's a little bit faster, but there's not huge leaps that we've seen. So war tends to accelerate those increases in technology. So you get lots of interesting developments. Plus, there are different sides. So you get alternating things. Somebody like the Spitfire Mark 9 was an answer to the Focke-Wulf 190, which itself was an answer to the Spitfire before it, you know. And so you get this continuously leapfrogging sets of technology. The Cold War did that over the period of post-war through to the 1990s in a similar way, but not as hot. You know, it was not as compressed, but still. Think of where we were at the end of World War II to where we were in 1990 in terms of technology. Very, very different. So I think those two big pieces come in of why we tend to look at machines of war, because they often represent big leaps in technology. They often represent the best of what was available at the time, or a quirky dead end that nobody followed up. So you get lots of interesting stuff. You have lots of different schemes, because quite often there are different, you know, theaters that these things operated in. So you can do the same thing in multiple different ways or multiple different iterations. And I think as men, we tend to look at something, and you can look at something. Actually, I had this discussion as well with, there's a lot to this question. I'm sorry if I'm doing a lot of monologuing here, but I think it's a really interesting question. You can think something is cool, right? I think an MG42, for instance, is objectively a very cool machine gun, right? It looks cool, it's boxy, it's a clever design. It took all of the technology of the MG34, which was an excellent weapon, but very hard to produce. Well, not hard to produce, but it was required a lot of refinement to produce. It was heavy and stuff. The MG42 improved on that to the point where modern German machine guns are based on it, essentially. It's possible to think all of that while simultaneously also knowing that a machine gun is a horrific thing. I would never, I hope, be in a situation where I would point one at something with the intention of firing it. So it is possible for us as humans to hold two truths in our minds at the same time about the same thing, right? I think a good example is the Middle East, right? You look at Israel, and you look at Lebanon, and you can say that Israel had horrible things happen to it in the past, and it deserves its place in the world and the right to continue its religion and autonomy and all of those things, whilst simultaneously saying it doesn't have the right to impose those same sort of horrors that were enacted upon it on others around it to ensure that, right? You can hold both of those truths at the same time. Or you can say that Hezbollah, for instance, committed atrocities when they attacked Israel, and Israel committed atrocities back. They are both wrong. There doesn't have to be a right and a wrong. They can both be wrong at the same time, or you can say that both of them did horrible things. So that's one of the dichotomies of human nature, is that we can do that. We're able to do that. So I don't think that the manufacturers are too focused on machines of war, or models are too focused on machines of war, because there are plenty of model manufacturers that make non-war kits. And if you look at, say, America, car modeling, like auto modeling, is more popular there than most other forms of modeling, like planes or AFVs. Now, personally, I don't have much interest in modeling something that I can own, right? So I could go out and buy I don't know, name your car of choice, whatever it might be, unless it's like even if it's a supercar, it's theoretically possible for me to go and buy it, right? A Ferrari, LaFerrari. I could, well, okay, not many people can, because actually they're all gone, but if you have the money, you could buy a McLaren 350 or whatever. I couldn't ever buy an ME 262, right? If I could, I probably wouldn't build a model of one, because I'd have a 262. That's just it. I don't think manufacturers should make more non-war kits, because they already do. It's almost assuming that they don't, but they do. Why don't they make more? Because they don't sell, because we don't buy them. So fundamentally, model manufacturers are there, much like Hollywood, right? I'll give you some of my views on Hollywood. The trend in the past 5 years, it's still going on, but it's dying off a little bit now, of Hollywood blaming fans for the failure of what it produces, is quite frankly bull, right? Review bombing, it doesn't exist, right, in the numbers that can affect Hollywood anyway. They just need to make better films, and that, I think, is perfectly demonstrated by Project Hail Mary, which was a fantastic box office smash because it was a really good story. It was very entertaining. You give people what they want and they will respond to it. Same with model companies, right? They exist to serve us. If they give us kits that we don't care about, we won't buy them. I can give you a good example, right, that I do every month. It's the unboxings on the Midweek Model Meet, right? I put up 20 kits. Everybody votes on them. Some kits are up there for several months because they get votes, and they either then progress up, or they gradually lose votes as they go, and fall off the list. Some of them appear once and they don't get enough votes to be seen again, because people are not interested in them, right? Chinese subjects, right, don't interest my audience. Okay, I can tell you that as a fact. Again, normal distribution curve, maybe a little portion down here do, but not enough. The majority don't care about Chinese subjects. So if I took from that, what, I really like Xiping, I'm going to do loads of Chinese subjects, the channel would gradually die, right? And if I then said, well, it's your fault, you've been review bombing. No, I just made the wrong things. I just didn't do what people wanted. So I think manufacturers, should they make more? It's a difficult one because, again, if I look at the Airfix starter kits, right? My number one starter kit, but in terms of sales, and people groan at this, was the Spitfire Mark V. Why? It's not just because, well, people who flew them or whose fathers flew them, will buy them. No, it's just, it's a pretty aircraft and it's iconic. I've had kids come into the shop, I want to buy an aircraft, and they go for the Spitfire. They don't go for modern stuff that often. The F-35 does sell well, but Spitfire outstrips it every time. Airfix make more car kits than they make starter kit aircraft. I don't sell a fraction. Well, I do sell, it is a fraction, but far, far less car kits, civilian subjects, than the military ones. So now, should we be more interested in non-war stuff? I mean, that's a moral question that I'm not sure we can answer, right? But I thank you for the question. I think it's a really interesting question. But at the end of the day, what interests us doesn't mean that we condone what we're interested in, if you see what I mean. It's not like if I buy a kit of, I don't know, a Panzer III, it doesn't mean I like the ideology of the Nazi Party in 1939. It means I think the Panzer III looks cool, and I want to model one and do some nice camouflage on it, or maybe I want to practice some weathering techniques in North Africa. There are many, many reasons, but it's not, it doesn't represent anything other than I think this is an interesting thing to make a model of. Yeah. So, yeah, I don't know whether it's, yeah, they are death machines ultimately. But I mean, I think it's a dangerous thing to put quotas on things in the way, like, for instance, Hollywood has, because of the logical extension that can then be applied. I would much prefer to just leave it to, the market. And unfortunately, I do think that there are not enough outlets to bring in a different sort of modeler, which is why I think Hornby cancelling the Airfix Flowers project is a travesty, and I think absolutely 100% the wrong thing to do, because not only would it appeal, and did appeal, to many traditional modelers like myself, but it also appealed to a different market, which is what the whole project was about, right? It was about broadening that. It's about, here is something that, is radically different. I mean, you couldn't get more different than as you quoted, death machine, than a flower, an organic, living, objectively beautiful thing, right? Something that represents life and growth. So I think really it's more about how do we appeal to a new market of modelers, because I'm not going to get my grandchildren, my granddaughters, I don't have any, but my granddaughters of the theoretical future into modeling by, or probably not going to get them in by showing them a Panzer III, because they have no context about that. It doesn't mean anything. It'd be like my father trying to get me into modeling by, showing me a Crimean ship model, right? Well, yeah. Anyway, that was a huge, let's say, monologue, but I think it was a really interesting question, and let's see if anybody else picked up on it while I was saying that. Right, people chatting about shows and things. Oh, Drim's in. Hi, Drim. Good to see you. That was a good 20 minutes ago, but he might have checked out by now. Oh, John. I really appreciate you being here, John. But I think this is a very valid comment. The new traction engine is non-war, but seem to have priced themselves out of 90% of people's reach. I would say it's more than that, John. So people who don't know, this is a 3D printed resin traction engine in, what scale is it, John? Is it like 1/24th or something? It's huge anyway. But it's like £300, which is just like ludicrous. Astonishingly ludicrous. I think if you look at, for instance, DBMK's approach, and I mentioned DBMK a lot recently because I think they are very representative of the current trend in modeling. And by trend, I just mean, the current flow of modeling. Qatari, again, similar. And actually, Airfix and Revell as well, right? There's something psychological about £100 price point, right? I think you have to be offering something very special to go over that. It's also why I think Italieri shot themselves in the foot with their 1/32 scale, 200, 202, and 205. I think you aim to come in at retail, because your RRP can, of course, be a little bit more. But at retail, you want to be sub £100. Because going over £100, as soon as you put 100, as soon as you get that third digit, it becomes a different psychological sale to yourself, right? And if you're going to go over 100, then, okay, I can go to like maybe 125 or something. You can make that step, a big step up for a big thing. Now, one of my customers recently, really good customer, comes in quite a lot, he and his wife, and he bought a 1/16 scale Achilles, the Andy Hobby headquarters TACOM kit. Superb kit. He's really enjoying it. Gave me more paint the other day. I told you we would be for more paint. That's 100. I think it was 125. It's supposed to be 180, I think, retail, but nobody sells it for that. I sold it for £125, and it's a big thing. I mean, the chassis is like this big, as you might expect, because 1/32 is going to be that, 1/35th, so 1/16th. It's like this big old thing, detailed interior. It's got all the shelves and stuff. You're getting a huge amount there for that extra bit, so you can justify that as, okay, 125. That's a big thing, but this is a big project. Now, and again, similar to, say, a 1/300 scale Yamato, like a Verifier kit, or maybe the 1/48 scale Lancaster from Tamiya, or one of their 1/32 scale kits like the Corsair. Big project, then okay, yeah, I've got that, I can invest in it, and this is going to be my big piece for the year, right? To double that again and some more, there are a few modelers that will invest that amount of money into a single piece. And when they do, it tends to be like Luca at Black Rifle Model Works, buying the Dora as a retirement project. It's a huge amount of money, but it's going to last for years. Is that really something you can say about a 3D printed resin traction engine? To me, no. £100, I think, is the sweet spot for a big project kit. And bear in mind, that is a big project kit for modelers. Now, for Mr. Average Joe on the street, or Mrs. Sally, or whoever who isn't a modeler, to bring them in, do more non-war stuff, your price point has to be much, much lower, like 20, 30 pounds, maybe. £20, I think, is what more people might consider spending on a new hobby, to do something. So then you look at, well, what kind of subjects can you do for that? Revell actually has quite a good selection of like non-military jets, like civil aviation. But a lot of people, look at those and it's just like it's a, they all look the same. It's a tube with wings and a couple of engines. Apologies to all civil aviation models out there. I know that's not the case, but it's a little bit the case. But I'm talking a non-modeler. It's like, yeah, they might want to do like, I don't know, the Ryanair flight that they were on. Why would you? You know what I'm saying, though. They might want to do something they've got a connection to or familiarity to. I get a lot of requests from people in the shop wanting, can you get this particular car? Because I used to have one, is where my misspent youth was, in an Escort Mark II racing around. I want to build a model of one, that kind of thing. And usually, those models exist. Whether you can get them or not depends on the age of the car, of course. So, yeah, it's a difficult one. I think, a traction engine could be an interesting thing. Does it have a wide interest base anyway? I mean, maybe a steam rally day, you might see a traction engine, but I don't think it's the subject to bring in new modelers. And obviously, they are not going for non-modelers with a price tag that high. Even so, I think it's a subset of modelers, because a lot of modelers won't do like a complete resin kit. Their experiences of resin upgrades for aircraft or for vehicles, resin can be difficult to deal with. It can be brittle. It can, it's not very nice in terms of the dust it produces if you sand it. You need cyanoacrylate to glue it with, which, super glue is a whole thing by itself. So, yeah, it's an interesting one. Personally, I wouldn't have invested my money in developing it, but that's me. Okay. John Alex is in. Thank you for joining, John. Apologies, it's taken me so long to get to your comment, but you know me, I like to go down various segues. Paul Dye says there are a lot of models that are non-war. Unfortunately, most of them have niche appeal or at the higher end of the price spectrum. Yeah, and I think that higher end of the price spectrum is a big consideration. So one of the things I was talking to Luke about today, and I had the same conversation with Dale at Airfix, is obviously because of my background, the business side of things. And I think it's something that people often forget. Making models isn't actually that easy. And to bring new tools, as a company, you have to look at return on investment. Return, ROI, as they say. ROI is king. And it's the same for any industry, right? For Hollywood, a flop is something that doesn't give the right ROI. You can make a huge amount of money, but if you've spent a huge amount of money making that return on investment isn't good. It's not good enough to justify the sequel or whatever. So again, I come back to why I think the cancellation of Flowers is a really bad idea. Because they'll already have spent a lot of the money. If they were going to release in August, I can almost guarantee the tooling was probably in production, if not done already. So to not have that, I think those were priced at the right price point. They were talking about, what's it, $14.99, $19.99, £25, those sorts of prices. That's where you want to be. I think they were perfect. I think they would have made them a lot of money. I think that would be good return on investment, especially given that Mike Ashley has, Debenhams, they could have done it through House of Fraser and stuff. I would have thought that would have been ideal placement, but there you go. Let's have a little look down. People saying hello, which is always good. Just scrolling down. Mike from Montana says, well, taking a minority view, I really wouldn't mind if less people weren't so enthralled with BF 109s. I get that. I do get that. I think the problem is with German World War II machines in general is they had some very distinctive looks and they had some very distinctive camo, which make them quite appealing, right? Mottle camo and the ambush camo on AFVs and the iterations of that, they just look objectively good. I mean, the Germans introduced a lot of camouflage, again, at the end of World War II, a lot of stuff that was then adopted into post-war camouflage theory. And we see the results of a lot of that today. If you look at late World War II German camo, like especially of the paratroopers and stuff, it looks like modern camouflage smocks. You know, they kind of nailed the whole camouflage look by the end there. The mottle camouflage schemes on 109s, 190s, 262s and stuff look nice. Not that some of the schemes that we had don't also look nice, but we were much more standardized, right? Ours were, there was less variation. Some of that comes, of course, from the pressure that Germany was under because of our continuous pushing back on them. But for example, Soviet aircraft, right, don't get the same sort of coverage that German aircraft get, partially because a lot of the designs were quite similar. You know, if you look at the Yaks, MiGs, and Lags, all have very similar design elements in them, or they share some similar design concepts between them. And the camouflage schemes are, again, they're not completely standardized, but they are less inventive, let's say, for obvious reasons. Uncle Stalin wouldn't like it. Still a horrible regime, not followed as much. You know, it's not that people prefer fascism over communism, it's that German stuff kind of has that, like the 109 has a brutal sort of angular kind of look. And then combined with those camouflage schemes, that's interesting, visually interesting. The Spitfire has beautiful flowing lines and, you know, quite standard camouflage, which is visually appealing in a slightly different way, you know. So I get both sides of the argument, but I have done quite a number of 109s myself, so. Comment. Yeah, Spitfires all day long, or P-47s, bizarrely. You see, to me, this is one of the things I love about modeling, and more specifically the modeling community, like all of you guys, meeting people at shows and stuff, is one man's meat is another man's poison, right? I think the ME-262 is a beautiful looking aircraft. There are people who hate it, right? And again, going back to that duality of human nature, both views are absolutely valid. You know, I respect your opinion, no matter how wrong it is. But, no, I mean, seriously, a P-47 does nothing for me, right? It's a big, fat bird. And it had some very American interesting schemes, but, you know, not that I won't do a P-47 and enjoy it, but it doesn't get my blood racing. You know, it's just like, okay, that's, you know, I've done a P-47. More than, I mean, the Spitfire to some extent is the same, but I just think it's pretty, right? Whereas the P-47 is not for me. Likewise, I'm not a big P-51 fan. You know, I think it's okay. I'm not a Meteor fan. I think it's pretty ugly. But again, I'm really looking forward to doing the Revell Meteor in 1/32 scale, the first edition. because the kit's got me excited. It's the building of it and the painting of it more than the subject. So modeling is multidimensional, and what you get out of it isn't for anybody else to say right or wrong. Okay. Mark just ordered 2 more Spitfires. Decided this morning I had to be. That's it. If you just get that feeling, why not? So yeah, Kev, I think you're right. War is bad, but war machines are pretty sexy. Stand past Blackburn Rock. You have a lovely personality. Yeah, it is a strange contradiction, and there is. I think it says a lot about us as species that we can, have that duality. I mean, if you look at war, conflict in general brings out the best and worst in people, right? If look at the Ukraine, right? We have seen the resilience of the Ukrainian people. We've seen them come together and just do the best. Some of the I don't want to get political, or I obviously support the Ukraine because I support a sovereign nation defending its assets against a hostile invader. That doesn't mean I think the Ukraine was perfect before the invasion. There was high levels of corruption. They're working to make it better, but it was still, a lot of corruption. And as there's a lot of corruption in a lot of countries, the Ukraine was pretty bad. Nobody was saying it was perfect, but it still had the right to be a country, right? But there was an operation done recently by the Ukraine where they destroyed a couple of Beriev BE-12s, which is a weird-looking aircraft, and it isn't very well covered in the modelling world, actually, probably because it's weird and pretty ugly. Let's face it, pretty ugly. But they destroyed 2 of those, plus I think an Mi-28, might have been a Hind, with 6 drones, 6 big fixed-wing drones. But the ingenuity of the operation was incredible. And it was only because they knew and understood the Soviet systems that the Russians have been using, the Tor system and the Pantsir, so well that, for instance, I'll just give you one example. The Tor is a surface-to-air missile system, right? Yeah, SAM. And basically it has hard-coded into it, so the users can't change it, to filter out stuff like birds and all this kind of thing from its targeting, so it doesn't target absolutely everything that moves in the sky. It has a hard-coded limit of anything under 100 kilometers an hour it disregards. So 2 of these drones flew at 95 kilometers an hour. So the Tor couldn't get a lock on them. It's just like, it's just disregarded, and it's hard-coded, which, of course, the Ukrainians knew because they used Tor systems before, operated them in Soviet times. So they know these systems at a very deep level. So just little pieces like that, it brings out that ingenuity, because they're doing it to survive. The heroism that has come through from various, people in the Ukraine, incredible. Likewise, it also brings out the worst. We've seen, horrible war crimes committed. And again, I won't get political, but that's the duality of the human spirit, right? Is that we have this capacity to do great good and great evil, and great pressure tends to push people along one of those two paths. So anyway, moving on to lighter things. Let's see. What about girls and pants? Now we're touching on something slightly different, and but actually, the Japanese is a strange nation, and again, it's a nation full of contradictions, right? On the one hand, you have this extremely formal culture, with, yeah, we were always taught, because I used to work for a Japanese company. If you meet anybody from Shimadzu, Japan, they give you your business card. You spend a long time studying their business card and looking at it. And that shows respect for the person that's giving it you, that you're taking your time and really making sure you look at and study the card. Whereas if you did that in most Western meetings, somebody gives you a business card, it's usually at the end, or like, hit me up, here's my business card, and you expect the other person to take it and put it in their little business card holder. Do you remember those? I used to have loads of those. Your little business card holder, and put it in the pocket. If you did that to one of our Japanese execs, they'd be extremely offended. You're just basically dismissing them. And on the other hand, you can buy freshly worn pants sealed from a vending machine. Now, that to me is just like, that's madly, wildly contradictory, right? The whole sort of anime, and you get into hentai and, really weird stuff with this really formal kind of culture as well. Really, really odd. But they do have companies that make models of, let's say, somewhat underclothed females with improbable anatomy. I remember so a video I did a couple of years ago now about the best model company. I'm going to return to that and do the best model company now, because I think it has changed. Certainly the rankings have wildly shifted, I think, from when I did it in, I think it might have been 2023 actually. But when I was doing the research for that, like, because you get all these companies on ScaleMates, for instance, companies you've never heard of, right, with weird names. I'm just like, what the hell do they do? I've never heard of them, but that doesn't mean that just because I've not heard of them, I should dismiss them. So I looked at all of these 100 companies, well, more than 100 because some got dismissed, but 100 companies, and one makes these models. And Maria was like, what are you looking at? And I was like, do you think I should get one of these models? And she was just like, rolled her eyes and walked away. But so those are definitely not war machines, definitely not anything to do with war. But still, I think I would be less ashamed to be modeling a swastika covered Nazi fighter than to be painting the very short skirt of one of these models. So Girls and Panzer isn't quite there, but it's adjacent, maybe. Let's have a little look down. Okay. Chroma Fleet Yard says the £100 barrier definitely exists and the £50 is dangerously catching up. Yeah, it's so I get a lot of stats from Shopify. Right, okay. In fact, let me just go into my Shopify account. I can tell you what my average order value is. Bear with me. So let's look at the last year, just to make it kind of a okay. Bear with me. Being a little bit slow. Okay, the last year. Average order value is just over £30. So when somebody comes to the shop, on average, they'll spend £30. Now, bear in mind, a lot of people will come into the shop just to buy, I just need some XF32. Can't buy XF32, but you know what, XF17, there's one. Just need, to buy more of this paint, or I just need some sprue goo, or I just need some glue, or, there's a lot of those, like, specifically going to a model shop to top up on the one thing that you are missing to do next thing, which pulls it down a bit. So I would say the average kit value, when somebody comes in and buys a kit, it's around £40, right? It's about £40 is the average mark, which if you think a brand new tooled Tamiya kit is around that price. right? So if you think the M36 that came out last year, 39.99 RRP. So I usually sell 10% of RRP, 10% less than RRP, not 10% of RRP. Otherwise, I'd be horribly bankrupt. So it kind of makes sense. If you think I'm on 48 scale aircraft, a Spitfire is anything from 20 to 30 pounds ish. So that 30 to 40 pounds average kit price feels intrinsically about right. Now, obviously, inflation is always a thing. And in fact, I have a video coming out where I go over a 1980s Matchbox catalog, right? One of my customers, Ray, brought it in. I said, can I borrow this? I'd like to do a video on it because just leafing through it, it's really, really interesting. Really interesting to see a lot of the kits they're now coming out from Revell at reasonable prices, which is great to see. But yeah, so £50 is not that far away for an average purchase price. Again, if I look at cars, most 1/25th scale cars, they range, but anything 25 to 35, 40 pounds, is a good average for those. Ships, it's a little bit different because they start off very cheap and they get very expensive. So it's a much broader thing because they cover a lot of different subjects and scales. So if you think of 1/700 scale waterline destroyers, like £10 for two, and 1/300 scale Yamato is £125 or 115, I think it is. So huge range and huge difference in what that is. But most kits in the shop are less than £100. Most. There are a few, that just tip over, but not go a lot over. In fact, I wonder what the most expensive kit is I've got. I think it probably is the M6, the 16th scale Achilles. M16, 1/16th scale Achilles. The Verifier Yamato. I think those are both up in that 115 to 125 pounds. Most everything else stays at that £100 or below level. People talking a little bit about various different things about. Oh wow, is that right? A 1/72nd scale traction engine, £100. Eesh, not for me, thank you. Good to see you, Lox9. Didn't see you before. Lots of people actually I'm seeing talking who I didn't see pop in, but welcome everybody that I haven't said hello to already. Lots of discussion in the chat, which is always good. Ian Chambers says, for return on investment, Airfix Lancaster kit used to come with bombs. Unfortunately, the new kit doesn't. You have to buy the resupply set. That, to me, really pushes up the price point. Yeah, it's an interesting one. Funny, Ilya and I were talking about this when he was talking about the scimitar and the kind of weapon loads they're going to put with it, and where that point comes at. Do you include £500 and £1,000 bombs, or just the 500s, or just the 1000s? Or because obviously not everybody's going to use the ordnance. You can't use all of the ordnance supplied on one kit. So at what point do you push the price up to include more stuff that not everybody's going to use? So those are all important considerations that I don't think many modelers think of. But I do think, not supplying bombs with a World War II subject, which it's a bomber, right? That's what it does. And one of the things, actually, as another weird aside, I always thought of fighters as, as most kids did, most boys did, they're cool, the aggressive ones. But if you think a fighter is actually a defensive weapon, a fighter or an interceptor, as the Spitfire really was, it's to defend yourself from an enemy attack. What is attacking? It's enemy bombers. Enemy bombers, I always thought of as sort of like the cows of the sky, these big, lumbering, soft targets. But they're not. They're the ones that are penetrating enemy airspace and destroying stuff on the ground. They are the flying artillery. They are the offensive ones. They're the aggressors. So really, you can think about a 109 really is a defensive thing, even though, of course, they were used then for ground attack and, all the rest of it. But in the grand scheme of things, it's the bombers really that we should put the shame on. But that is its purpose. That was what it was designed for. And again, not having the bombs in a Lancaster does feel a little bit unintuitive, I would say. Having said that, the original Lancaster kit bombs were not all that. So I saw an ME262 comment, so I have to. It's nice looking and sleek, but didn't they have a habit of blowing up? No, that was the ME163. The ME262, the engines were just incredibly fragile. So the 262 was a sound design, but there were two things with. So once again, Hitler came to our rescue in many ways because he diverted the 262 from being a fighter to being a Schnellbomber, a fast bomber, which wasn't what it was designed for. It took away from the defense of Germany at the time. The conclusion of the war was inevitable at that point anyway, but it could have been prolonged longer. So he did us a lot of favors in the course of the war. Obviously, he didn't do anybody any favors by initiating it and then, with the whole ideology thing. But some of his decisions really helped us as the Allies in defeating it, because he, like certain other leaders that I won't mention to not be political, but he led with his emotions and not his brain. At that time, what Germany needed was defense. It needed to stop the Allied bombing, so that it could get breathing room to build its strength. It didn't need to try and do pinprick attacks, which weren't going to make any difference. But the engines, because they were, super new technology, they were not robust. They were really easy to flame out. They were, most of a 262's pilot skill, not most of it, but a lot of its, the initial skill was to manage the engines, to get them to perform, to get the aircraft up, and then be a fighter pilot, and then manage them on the way down, manage your fuel and everything and all that kind of stuff. So the ME163 was more dangerous to its pilots than it was to the enemy. So again, on balance, the ME163, I don't think even broke even in terms of numbers of, assets, let's call them, shot down, to number of assets it killed itself on its own side. And somebody, I think, says that there. Yeah, there we go. Yes, exploding dissolvey. Yes, that's a good way of putting it, Kev. C-Stoff and T-Stoff, one of them, there are two chemicals, both of which I've had the misfortune to come into contact with. Concentrated hydrogen peroxide, which, if you know anything about peroxides are, as the name suggests, extremely strong oxidizing agents. And anhydrous hydrazine, which is super nasty stuff. To give you the idea, I was actually looking at distilling anhydrous hydrazine. Anhydrous just means it's without water, so it's just pure hydrazine. I was looking to distill a very small amount basically to break sugars down, carbohydrates, because it's really good at that. So that gives you an idea. It's nasty, nasty stuff. And when you get anhydrous hydrazine and a very strong exercise together, they like to party, and yeah, they explode. And yeah, any remaining Sichtstoff and T-Stoff that was in the tanks after the rocket engine, it used all the usable fuel. There's still a little bit left in the tanks. Because the ME-163 didn't have any landing gear, who thought that was a good idea? Let's just put a wooden skid on it with a spring. Made its landings a tad hard. It tended, any unused stuff tended to go boom. Chroma Fleetyard says, I love Japanese culture. Went once for work. Totally embarrassing situation. I got to the airport and thought I was going to the hotel first. Instead, I went straight to a high meeting. Oh dear. Yeah, I've had similar kind of situations. Ian says, more of my purchases of kits are now from under the table sales at model shows, mainly due to price. I think for me, one of the great joys of a model show are finding rare kits or bargains, because there's a certain amount of pleasure to be found in finding a kit that you haven't been able to find at a good price and feel it's just a good feeling, right? It's just, and again, I think that at a really, deep-seated psychological dopamine release reward level it goes back to us being hunter-gatherers. It goes to us finding, I found a stash of mushrooms in the forest, which will feed my family for a week or whatever. And they're really good. And, that kind of thing. I think it's hardwired into us. But I also get that for some people, it's like, well, that is the affordable option. Kev also says, I like that DABMK and Qatari seem to be like long-lost cousins who have similar views on quality and a foundation of actually caring about their products. It's good to see. It is. Simon says, Simon's Modeling Shed. Simon says, sounds like I'm saying the game, doesn't it? Sorry, Simon. Mini Art 135 scale kit, 60 to 75 pounds. Yeah. But we all know that there's two things on that, right? And I would even include ICM. ICM tend to be at the higher end of some of the price brackets for, say, 148 scale aircraft, for example. But you also know that you're getting more in that kit than you would in a standard one. So they are specifically targeted for experienced modelers. They're for a different strata, if you like, of the modeling sphere. And mini art are kind of like another strata on top of that. And that resin kit is another strata, probably somewhere above that. And I think with each of those, you get it's like a pyramid. You get a slightly smaller slice of the modeling world, fraternity, let's call it. Whereas your, kits at the bottom, very broad appeal, affordable to everybody, sub £10, say. Anybody could buy them, put them together and, have a good time. So Airfix, I think, that's where Airfix were originally, right? It's where Revell were originally. See how I'm now trying to bring it back to Revell. But modeling has moved on. Modeling has moved up through those strata. And maybe we're not bringing in new people because the barrier to entry for a, let's call it a normie, doesn't exist in, is all death machines, let's call them, at the bottom, or old stuff that people aren't really interested in or would have a bad experience of. Paul says, this is a subject I really want. I'm quite happily buy a second-hand kit. Yeah. And there's nothing wrong with second-hand kits. I absolutely, I sell second-hand kits in the shop. You know, I've got a guy coming in tomorrow, bringing me 4 kits that he's got. You know, I will purchase kits from modelers without, you know, any hesitation. It just depends what I've got in the shop at the time. If somebody comes in with like my friend did with, you know, he's getting out of modeling, you know, got all these kits. It's like, okay, well, it caught me at a good time, because if he'd done it now, I wouldn't physically have the room to sell them, because the shop is pretty full. But yeah, so secondhand kits, I think there is, it's a separate type of industry, if you like, of sale, but it doesn't make it any less valid at all. Yes, very few. Most expensive kit I have, Border 1/35 scale HE 111, 149.75. Wow, that's a big old kit though. What are the border instructions like? Well, actually, Locke says, yeah, I'll let Locke say it. They're terrible. Border model instructions are awful. Great kits, terrible instructions. Hydrazine was used in, yeah, because guess who was involved in that? I mean, the American space, I mean, it was German scientists that got NASA to the moon, right? So yeah, Operation Paperclip, whole nother subject there. Hey, Brian, good to see you. Hey up, everyone. Lord Hard Thrasher has a good video about the ME262. Probably not for those easily offended, though, but entertaining. I love Lord Hard Thrasher's stuff. He's very entertaining. Yeah, it's a good video. It's a good video. What scale did your friend model in? 1/35 scale armor. 200 pounds for Borders 1/350 scale Yamato 1945, and they're also releasing a parallel universe for Yamato, whatever that means. Who's going to buy that? I actually had the opportunity. I saw that one of my suppliers is selling that, and I looked at it and just thought it's actually less expensive than the normal one. And I was just like, "What's this? Why is this one cheaper?" And I looked at it, and it's just like, "Oh, it's like Cold War version. It's got like missile launchers on it, like the Soviet ones, like the big like tubes along the side." I just thought, yeah, like you say, who's going to buy? Because it's huge, right? The 1/350 scale Yamato is, it's like 85 centimeters long. It's most part of a meter. At 1/700 scale, yeah, I could do that. That's a bit of a laugh. You know, it's a kind of model that would make people's heads turn at a model show, which I like. I like people, you know. If people are just going by scanning, especially things like Telford, where there are thousands of models, you want something a little bit different to be able to just like turn people's heads. And I'll give you an example of that. There was an F-22 at Telford, but it was done in a pink anime livery, and it made it just because it's a recognizable shape but completely different livery. It was just like bang, wow, you know, it made you look at it straight away. So I think that's the sort of model that would, again, make people kind of just, why? Although said, no, I tend not to put the secondhand stuff on my website, to be honest. And I think actually most of it's gone. Basically because it's the same amount of work for me to put it on the website as a standard model. I still have a lot of my standard stuff which isn't on the website. I've got a huge backlog for the website. If anybody knows anybody in the Wincanton area who is looking for part-time work, I need somebody to help me get all the website stuff done. Like just as a one-off, it wouldn't be regular. It's just like I just need somebody to help me physically put in all the data entry. If I do that for a second-hand model, it's all that work for one sale. Whereas a standard entry, you know, it's for as long as that model's in production. So I can't justify the time putting them on, I'm afraid. Oops, that's the comment. Simon remembers that one at Telford. You see, it's like, do you remember all of the? I'm sure there were dozens of F-22s in standard delivery. I certainly don't remember any. You know, but if you think back now, what models do you remember from Telford? And it's likely to be the more unusual stuff. I remember a Stingray model, right? Jerry Anderson's Stingray, a really nice model of that. I remember that F-22. I remember some of the competition stuff. You know, it's those unusual high impact items, I think, that really stand out, that, again, they're unusual to make your mind hook onto that. I'll come back to that when I get back to the competition theme of things, which will be probably late summer. Locke says, I'm trying to invest all my money in RFM kits. I've not done too many Ryefield. I've done a couple. I've actually been more impressed, because I think Ryefield model kits are really good. I've been more impressed with TACOM kits. I think TACOM have really come like leaps and bounds over the last couple of years. I mean, certainly since I did that video about what is the best scale modeling company in the world, they were only doing armor back then and a couple of what if, like America bomber type 1/72nd scale aircraft. Now, and the density of the plastic was an issue. Remember that incredibly hard TACOM plastic. But they were rising quickly. Now, if you look at their catalog, you know, the detail, the price, the things like turned metal barrels in a £23 kit, decent instructions, not as bad as Borders, you know, variety of subjects. They've really, really pushed on. Really impressed with TACOM. I'm impressed with Border as well in terms of what they're making. God, I wish they would just employ one English person to do the instructions. I mean, it doesn't even have to be English, right? Because it's not. I think there are some lost in translation pieces, but just employ somebody just to specifically do instructions, you know, because oh my God, just get somebody to build the kit with the instructions. I mean, that Kate, the first, you know, step one tells you how to make the engine incorrectly. I mean, anyway, enough of my my ranting on that one. Remember the town setting of World War II at Telford? I think it was from the Dutch. Yeah, the complete battle scene. Yeah, that was quite incredible. And that, well, I'm actually now current. Wow. So I just want to quickly swing back to everything that we've discussed here about the different strata of modeling, and you know, just kind of ending here on sort of the quality of some of the models and where people are investing their cash. If I look at Revell, I got a delivery this last week from my supplier of a load of kits, including a lot of Revell kits. One was because a customer of mine wanted the Stranger Things Squawk fan, and that was one of the kits that came through. But I got a whole bunch of other stuff as well. And I was really surprised because some of the kits were the old Matchbox kits. I ordered them specifically for it. It wasn't a surprise that I'd ordered it, but I was surprised 3 years ago, 2.5 years ago, when I started the shop, I only ordered very select Revell kits, right? Because a lot of the catalog, and I've mentioned this several times before, I went through the price list and just highlighted in red all of the crap, right? I went through ScaleMates and looked at when things were tooled. I had experience of kits I've made, you know, which are bad, and I'm never going to order these kits because I can't justify selling them to somebody who doesn't know, right? If Revell aren't going to do due diligence and tell people that things are old. I'll do it for them because it's my integrity having a shop, right? So I pre-screened out, and it was about a third of the kits, a lot. One of the kits was the Sherman Firefly, the old Matchbox Sherman Firefly, as a My First Diorama, and it was over £20. Which, if you've ever built the Matchbox Sherman Firefly, it's not their best kit. It's really basic. It comes with a bit of a bridge, broken bridge that you put it on. And to charge over £20 for that, to me, was bad. That's pretty bad. We have now the Matchbox like tank transporter. Can't remember what it's called, the M something or other. They released that, I think it's like £12.50. And that's a much bigger model. It was a different series. Matchbox did these series, much in the way that Airfix did. We had the Krupp, the Horch, with the limber and the gun, £9. Same with the Jagdpanzer 4 L70, again £9, under £10 for kits that actually the Matchbox kits go together well. Now, in terms of realism and things, they had some issues, shall we say, but for that price point, that is your entry point to modeling. Those are sorts of things that younger modelers can afford, that people getting to the hobby who aren't sure, are willing to risk a tenner to start this hobby. I think that's really good, and is a marked difference to what Revell were doing even a year ago, certainly 2 years ago. And guess what? Some of the newer boxings of those also have Revell classics on the front. So we're also seeing this teasing of, something new is coming, which is very, very Airfix-like. So I don't know. What do you guys? For me, the Revell 1/32 scale first edition Meteor, I think, represents a bit of a, flag in the sand changing point. It's the fulcrum point, in the same way that we saw with Airfix, 10 years ago? Maybe Revell are taking that mantle. What do you guys think? You have a little look. Just talking about the TACOM 1/35 scale from the Chieftain Mark 10, and also the 1/35 scale Apache. Yes, big kit. Also, not very politically correct. On the box, it's got it's got a very obviously Middle Eastern gentleman, sort of looks like he's running. I saw the box, I thought, not sure that would have been approved in the West. Chroma Fleet Yards just got the Revell monogram B52 with X15 Platinum Edition. Oh my God, I'm in love. No, I'm really surprised at that, because to me, I would never buy that, right? It's way too much money for, I know the old Revell monogram, it's the monogram kit. B52 is supposed to be like one of the most accurate in 72nd scale, and 72nd scale is big. But it's an old kit. And yeah, the X15 comes with it as well. I know Platinum Edition, they had a bunch of stuff to it, but yeah, it's because Gary said that's what he would choose, given no monetary constraints or anything. And to me, it's just like I would never choose that. It's just, as I said before, modeling is this big compendium of all these different likes and wants and stuff, which I think is great. Otherwise those kits would never get made, and we would be poorer for it. Feel Revell have really upped their game since Luke joined them. Yeah, I would agree. And I think it comes at a really good time as well, because let's face it, Airfix had a really good announcement back in January. I think I said at the time, I think it was one of the best ones they've had for years. And it kind of feels like it's been all downhill since then from Hornby. We haven't had good news. And we've had the releases of vintage classic kits. The Saracen is due this month. I think it's going to be pivotal whether that happens on time and what the messaging is around that. Speaking of Revell, Alex, will you be getting the Eurofighter in when they release it? The 1/32nd scale one, I probably won't have on the shelf, just because the Eurofighter is an interesting one, right? I've got a couple of the Blackjacks, the Revell kits, the 48 scale. I've got quite a few 1/72nd scale of different ones, Italeri, Revell, got the Airfix starter kit as well. They don't sell. They don't sell very well at all. I think I've sold a couple. So for me, the 1/32nd scale, I won't be stocking it unless somebody specifically wants it. I can get it. There's no issue with getting it, but it's not something that I will have on the shelf, because also it will have a massive box and it will take up a massive amount of space, because Revell kits tend to. Hopefully that's something that Luke can address as well, because yeah, we don't want big boxes with not much rattling around it. Big boxes that are full, I'm very happy with. But yeah, so that's generally the rule for me. So, for instance, I had a whole bunch of Qatari BF109s, the K, and they sell. They didn't all go at once, but I've been, every week, one or two Qatari BF109s will disappear from the shelves. It's kind of and again, I don't want to belittle people's opinions about 109s or Spitfires, but people buy them. And much as I said before, in terms of like companies will do what people want, that means people as in the collective. So if you say to formerly to Dale, now of course to I don't know who, or to Luke at Revell, or Will at DBMK, or Ilya or Qatari, whoever, you must do a in fact I had this I joked with Luke about this 1/32nd scale Valkyrie. It's like, no one's ever going to do that, until injection molding, becomes a desktop possibility, like CNC machining now has got to the desktop level. If injection molding gets to that, then yeah, maybe somebody might be mad enough to make a 1/32nd scale Valkyrie. But be sensible, right? XB70 was huge. It's one of the biggest bombers ever created. Who would buy that kit? It'd be very, very small number of people. So you'd have to sell it for an enormous amount of money, because you would have invested a huge amount, and you probably would lose money on it. So yeah, Eurofighter. I quite like the Eurofighter. I've made a couple of Eurofighters, but generally not. In general, it's actually World War II stuff sells more than Cold War stuff, which sells more than modern stuff. That's a general rule. Aircraft and AFVs are about 50-50. I would say maybe a little bit over towards the aircraft. I think what I sell in the shop reflects the demographics that you can pick out from looking at scale mates and number of kits that are tooled in the various different sectors. There's a reason for that. It reflects people's modeling interests. So But yeah, if you want a specific kit, and that goes for anybody listening, if anybody wants a specific kit, the best thing to do is message me on the shop email. It's the same as the channel email. So if you go to the shop, you can ask for the contact details, get there's a like automated little AI thing that will tell you the it's not like ChatGPT, it's just like it's an algorithm. If you say, what are your contact details, it'll spit them out. They are available elsewhere on the website, but that's the easiest way to do it. It'll spit out the email. Just send me an email, say, can you get X kit, whatever it is. And it can even be, can you get a model of a 1/35th scale Scorpion, regardless of what that is. I'll come back and say, yeah, okay, one of my suppliers has the AFV Club or Dragon kit of it. It would be this much. RRP is this is what I would sell it at, and then it's up to you to make that choice. I can always do that. I can always order stuff in for people, and I do it quite regularly for people who pop into the shop. But in terms of kits on the shelves, I have to make it's a guess, speculation, but it's an educated guess on what I think will clear through the shop, because any retail business is about turnover. It's one of the reasons, if you come into my shop now versus if you came to my shop 2 years ago, you would have thought I was sponsored by Airfix, right? It was red boxes across the shelves. Now I've got probably 4 times the amount of stock, 4 or 5 times the amount of stock, and it's much, much less red. You'll see an awful lot of Tamiya kits. It's Tamiya kits sell. And a lot of other different manufacturers. One, I think that diversity is good because it gives people a reason to come in, and people will often say you've got a really wide selection of kits here with some really odd things, because I think that's one of the great joys of going to a model shop, right, is going and finding that weird, obscure kit you never imagined, as well as being able to get your basics, and your regular stuff. David says, looking forward to the Saracen and even the Stalwart RA Limber as we have worked with them. Yeah, and I've got a lot of people. Okay, I won't go into rumor mongering, but there is a discussion to be had, I think, when these 2 kits come out about what happens next. I think Airfix have a golden opportunity, which I don't think they will take because of the recent changes, to do an awful lot of this Cold War stuff. If you look at where could you get, for instance, a 1980s British Army truck, I'll tell you where, because I've had people come into my shop saying, I've just come out of the army, I want to build one of everything I've driven, and it's not an easy ask. And do you know where you could get all of that stuff? Accurate Armor. Where can't you get any of that stuff now? Accurate Armor, because it doesn't exist. Airfix could have taken that space in injection molding plastic, and I think they would have done really well. Question mark. Anyway, moving on. The difference in buying habits from Somerset to Suffolk is amazing to me. I have lots of pre-orders for the 32nd scale Typhoon, but small armor almost never sells, interestingly. So I stock quite a bit of 1/72nd scale armor and aircraft, and I had a couple of guys come in and they buy quite a bit of stuff. They came in, he brought his friend in, they bought some stuff, and they were in like the next day buying more. They say not very many model shops stock 1/72nd scale now, which is interesting, because it becomes then a carrot and stick. That's not the simile I wanted. Chicken and egg kind of situation. Model shops don't stock it because people aren't buying it, and people don't buy it because model shops don't stock it. So yeah, it is strange. It might also be, Chrome, because I've not put the 32nd scale. I've not put up my Revell pre-orders yet. I keep meaning to do it. Every time I go to do it, something distracts me. But yeah, it's not going to make or break my business. So Simon says, wish there was a few more different mark of Spitfires on the market, a 14, 18, 21, the ones that are less well known. Well, DBMK are going to be doing all of the Griffin engined Spitfire variants, so we will see more on the market coming from them in the future. 1/32 scale Vigilante. Now a Vigilante, that's I would buy a 1/48 scale Vigilante. I remember doing the Airfix one, and I love the concept of the Vigilante before it got canned, obviously, with turned into a reconnaissance aircraft. But of the trail bomb sled, it's just like it basically poops a nuclear bomb out of its bum. What a mad concept. A 1/32, I mean, a 1/48 scale one would be big. A 1/48 scale would be huge. Yep, Chroma, I think we are very much aligned in our philosophies. I think you've got to keep the sort of staples. Maybe actually, I think that'll be a really good topic for a midweek model meet, topic session, is to have a bunch of independent retailers. So Chroma, if you're interested, get a few of us in and just take questions and talk about our businesses a little bit. Maybe a bit of a way to get more interest in our online businesses and local businesses. One of the things, a lot of people will say to me about, we've got a new model shop in Crewkern, which isn't that far away. It's a drive away, but it's like, it's like, well, I think it's good, that we've got another model shop coming up. It shows that it's a healthy industry. It's not a bad thing, and I'd be happy to promote that. It's not something. In one sense, they are competition, but I don't think we're at that stage that we can't all work together to promote the hobby. It's not like we got to defend our little piece of cake. It's big enough to go around. I'm not at the stage. Jadlam is in Glastonbury, for goodness sake. I mean, they've got a warehouse, because it's not a proper shop. Just saying, but I add much more value. Gotta have a go, come on. But they don't really affect my business, right? It's a different business model. I feel I compete more with Airfix directly than I do with Jadlam. Jadlam are almost like an extension of Airfix in that respect. I don't think of it as competition like that. I think of it as promoting the hobby. It's a difficult thing to convey without sounding disingenuous, but I want small retailers to succeed. I don't just want it to be. I don't have any intention of creating a monopoly empire. I think that's ridiculous. I'm not Trump. Thank God. So yeah, I think that'll be a really interesting thing. So if you know a local model shop that would appear on the show, obviously you need a camera and microphone and good internet connection, all that sort of stuff. But please do mention it to them, get them to get in touch. I think it'd be great to have 4 or 5 other shops here promote their business, talk about them, how long they've been in business, what they do. I think that'll be really good. In fact, one of the things I've been discussing with the channel members is Man's Model Moments on tour. And it's getting legs. So this is basically, I want to get out into the field, as we used to call it in business. And basically the idea is I go to visit some sort of military museum, so an aircraft museum or military museum like Bovington or Yeovilton, my local ones, but further afield. So there's plenty of museums across the country, and basically go round with channel members, with people who want to, link in. So I'll put the dates and stuff when I'm going to do this, and film it, then go to a local model shop, not the one in the museum, because that's obviously got its own marketing and stuff, but like a local model shop, and do an interview with the model shop as well. Just talk about whatever it is that they want to talk about. I think it would make slightly different entry. I don't think anybody's really doing that on YouTube with modeling. I think it'd be slightly different angle to things. So if you guys want to get involved, let me know. If you're a channel member, then it's on the Discord. Come and join us. If you are a channel member and don't have the Discord, there's a link on the YouTube members post with a link to Discord there. And if you're not a member, the lowest membership I do is, what is it? Beginners, Sprue? I can't remember now. Just to get you access to the Discord. Yeah, come and join us. And if you want to get involved, get into the Discord, chat about it. We'll get some dates set up and we'll go and do that. I'm going to sort of test it out this coming weekend. Not going to, that's not a public one. It's not anything invited. I just kind of want to get into the how I'm going to do this before I actually go kind of live with the concept. You'll see and kind of how I'm tying it in with the channel, some stuff that I've already done. I've even got somebody who is going to be a videographer for me, camera person. So yeah, I'm quite excited about that because normally I'm in the shop 6 days a week and editing a lot of the other time. So this will get me, it'll get my vitamin D levels up. Sword Seamew. Ooh. Trumpeter 148th Vigilante is awesome. Oh, okay. I didn't realize Trumpeter did one. Interestingly, Chroma, I don't know, maybe it's a discussion for offline. I'd be interested to know how Hobby Boss and Trumpeter kits sell for you. Oh, Chroma's definitely up for that. Excellent. Sounds good. Sounds good. Simon says, time up to Elvington Air Museum at York, the Nonk Bar models in York Centre. That sounds good. I love York. York's a great city. Okie dokie. Oh, there we go. You've even got a potential customer there, Chroma. So if you want to pop your me your website for your shop, Chroma, I will pop it into the little information section when this becomes a video after the live stream. I put my money where my mouth is. If I say I want, going to promote other people, I'll promote other people. So, I mean, I'd like to go up to the northeast to where I used to go to university, and my uncle and aunt are still up there, and do the Northeast Model Centre, because that's a great model shop. So let me know what museums I should have a look at up there. Go to Morivia. Where on earth is that? It's a great wee museum. I'm presuming that's Scotland, especially with Moray in there. Newark does indeed have an air museum. So I'm originally from Lincoln, so I kind of know that there are a number of museums around the Lincolnshire area, it being Bomber County and all. So yeah, Kev, definitely. So the Lank sculpture on the A46, I took a photo of when I went home at Christmas. I meant to put it as a post, but for some reason I got distracted and didn't. It was closed at the time, which I thought was odd, but there you go. Is that a joke on Scalemates? Tammy are bringing out dinosaurs with a risky name. Really? Oh, Kinloss. Oh, okay. Okay. So a while since I've been in Scotland. I used to be in Scotland a lot because we were based in Inchinnan when I was at Thermo Fisher. And before that, my girlfriend lived in St Andrews when I was in Newcastle, which was It's a long old. It's when you get to Edinburgh and you've still got, you're halfway. It's like, I remember because RAF Lucas is there as well. We used to get tornadoes over all the time. But okay, looking at new kit releases. Let's have a little look at them before we end. So it's coming to the witching hour, guys. So if you've got any questions or comments you want to make at the end before we sign off for the night, whereas I'm just going to look at the new releases here. Oh, Special Hobby are doing a 1/48 scale Heinkel HE177A3. Good God, that's going to be large. Special Hobby have been doing some really nice stuff, though, so I think that's too big, though, for me. 1/72 scale one is big enough. Right, let me have a look. Tamiya. I don't see it. Is it in the news feed? No, because that's got all kinds of rubbish in it. The kits. I'm not finding it. Locks, give me a clue. What am I looking for? Kits, physical. Let's select Tamiya. And then let's go to new tools. And 2022 now. Right, I see what you mean. Yes. That's an interesting one. Apparently, it's a real dinosaur. Or there are two dinosaurs. So let me just show what Locks was talking about. Share screen. So this is the yeah, it's I think that's a lost in translation one. We also, as well as the Fukuisaurus, there's also a raptor as well. Fukuiraptor. I mean, I suspect they're probably real because the Japanese are terrible at not checking other languages, I must say, and not getting context for this sort of thing. So we'll see, right? That's going to be an interesting discussion because dinosaurs sell well in the shop. In fact, I need to order some more. So having to explain to somebody's mother, it's just like, no, that's a real dinosaur. Yeah, there we go. The Special Hobby 177 is virtual complete retool. Some on so the Special Hobby stuff of late isn't the Special Hobby that I knew in the 90s. So bit of historical context. Special Hobby used to be low pressure injection molding, which of unusual subjects, which required quite a lot of work. And then they'd have like resin and etch bits for like important like bits where you needed detail. Whereas the recent stuff has just been really, really nice, like high pressure molding in a lot of the for the main pieces, and really good detail, fantastic instructions. So I've not seen any of 48 scale stuff. I've only looked at the 72nd, but yeah. Sunderland had an air museum. Oh, land, sea, and air museum. Okay. I studied in Sunderland for 3 years and never knew that existed. Mind you, maybe it's since I was there. It was in Flesh Gordon. Maybe it's good that we're ending the stream soon. Meaning fortunate lizard. Unfortunately named lizard. Still, hey ho. Well, there we go. We're ending on a fuck youisaurus. I think we'll say the fortunate lizard. Maybe they'll get stickers because the hobby company import all of the Tamiya kits that come into the UK, and they have to put on the labels. So labeling for things like paints to come into the UK is really strict. I think it's the EU actually. So that's why you get these flammable labels and stuff on Tamiya things, which is ridiculous, but it's the law. I don't think you could actually burn Tamiya paint, but I don't know. Maybe I'll try that one day. Generally, things that are like 30 or 40% water don't burn that well. I mean, whiskey and stuff, it doesn't burn well. It does burn, but it's not like petrol, you know. So yeah, maybe they have to put these stickers on, so maybe they'll have an English sticker to go over with fortunate lizard dinosaur or something. But anyway, lots on there. Speaking of shops, I will just close with the new products. So the paint reset, that actually came out there. Brush balsam, nuclear option, and what is it? Routine clean are all live on the website right now. Also, the low odor leveling thinner, which is a new product, doesn't have stickers yet. I put pre-orders for that. The product is ready. I just need labels for it, hence the pre-order status. Also, the tester kits, like the little bottles of each of 8 products, are also live on the website as a pre-order, because I can't actually send them out until I've got labels for the low odor leveling thinner. But all of that is live now. So if you guys want to buy it, you can. And that's it from me, I think. So thanks, guys, for coming and chatting a little bit about Revell, but also about a lot of other things, about kind of state of the industry, why war stuff, all kinds of things. We covered a lot tonight, and some really good questions and comments. I think that was a great comment, actually. That great question about the war stuff. Why is it so, and should it be different? Maybe it should, but unfortunately, human nature means that currently it's not. So anyway, thank you guys for joining, and hopefully you will see me again on Friday evening on Scale Model Inc. Live. That's John Alex's stream. I'll try and put a link for it on my channel as well. I've forgotten the last couple of weeks, but go and check out his channel anyway. It's a good one. Until then, have a good one and take care. Take care of yourselves and happy modeling. Cheers now.